Give it up for the theme song by Dr. Kiki. Hello, everyone. Welcome to season 3 premiere of Tapped In. This is Soft Power TV's premiere live stream, back for a 3rd season. As you could see, we got a little switcheroo of the host. MIDORI is taking on more of a producer role along with Flo. Sorry, Flo, I did not give you credit, but Flo really came through this morning. But this is now season 3 of Tapped In, hosted by me, Siobhan Diores, by Dr. Kiki over here. And today we are just really excited to dive back into the show. This is the show where we talk about our lives of unraveling and what comes after. If it's your first time watching, our old episodes have been really centered on our life as artists and healers committed to being creative with our lives, being in integrity with our values, and what that really looks like in the day-to-day. And so if you're watching, you probably saw our email or our IG invite saying that we just got back from Hawaii, and we have a lot to say about that. Not as a just like flex on our vacation, because it's probably going to surprise people what actually went down on that trip, but because of the fact that we're so aware of everything going on right now, the impacts of travel and tourism, and just this great need right now to really be intentional with our relationships to the land. So before I go any further, I just want to invite us to pause and arrive here in this moment. If you are new here to the soft power frequency, really our intention is to hold a space and really just share from the heart. We are going to get into Kiki and I's story and relationship, but this is really supposed to be cozy and an invitation to sit with these topics that we're discussing without any preaching. We're not the experts of any of this. We are just friends sharing our journey along the way, and have met so many others who are similarly committed. And yeah, it's a tender time right now. I'm gonna pass it over to Kiki to introduce herself and to ground us. But yeah, before we just dive all the way in, at the top of our hearts is Palestine. I don't want to go any further without naming that we have seen the extremities of colonial violence, as well as kind of the capitalist, I don't know what we want to call it. I'm thinking about the fact that the Met Gala was yesterday, and it was major Hunger Games vibes of these people making great displays of wealth through the lens of fashion, knowing that the Israeli forces were at the same time escalating on Rafah, which is for those who don't know, Rafah is the southern border city that of Palestine that borders Egypt. And that is where, since October 7th, when Israel escalated under the excuse of wanting their hostages that they did not want back, that is a non-debatable fact that they do not care about their hostages. They have justified their violence by evacuating all of the Gaza Strip to Rafah, which originally had, I think, 250,000 people, currently holding 1.4 million people, half of them children. And we are seeing what unfortunately looks like a relentless completion of their effort to genocide these people from their homeland. So my whole body is just tingling up already at the mention of that. It's heavy, and in the same breath, this is why we felt the need to show up, speak, hold space, and be present with each other and with y'all, because we can't look away. And we also don't want to let that crush our spirit and our hope for the worlds that we are building. So, with that said, passing it to Dr. Kiki.
Siobhan, thank you so much for that intro, for really grounding us in what this moment is all about and why we are here, why we continue to use our voices, our platforms, and our relationships to keep ourselves strong in these moments that feel so crushing. I am so grateful to be a part of Soft Power, to be part of the Nucleus team, to have experienced one of the most nurturing, caring 2 weeks of my life in Hawaii, alongside my biological family that I'm in reunion with as a transracial adoptee. And so excited to share more about that journey and how that all came to be. And also just really reflecting what Siobhan was sharing at this time, I pulled a couple cards that I want to kind of ground us into today. One from the Kapwa Tarot deck created by JL Creator, as known on Instagram. And it is this card here, Nakatatanda ang Balat, which is associated with the Queen of Cups in the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. And you can definitely just get the vibe from this card just by looking at it without knowing anything about tarot. But what I really love about this card and what it's reminding us of, and you can see, is this femme in the sky, in the celestial that is coming down to earth, to the waters that we're all swimming in, the bumpy, crashing waves that many of us may be feeling right now, holding us, nurturing us, being there with us in these moments of, just all of the complexities that, at this moment I can feel such excitement to share about something really beautiful that happened in my personal life and see on the larger scale in the world that there's so much hurt and pain and destruction of human beings and of the land that's occurring, that even though it's not in my backyard, that it's happening to me through other human beings and the natural world that's experiencing this destruction. So I'm not going to go into too much of an interpretation, but just knowing that there is this mother queen-like figure that is here with us, that's holding us, that's always with us, and allowing us to regulate with one another in these spaces, encouraging us to connect and return to these relationships that are nurturing and supportive so that we can move through these moments as easily as possible with as much gentleness as possible. And so with that, I'm going to lead us in like a very quick 1-minute practice to just ground us. And I was doing this morning. So very much part of my daily routine. Wherever you're at, I just invite you to get settled, whether you're in a seated or standing position, and just connect with your breath first. We're going to do a clearing breath. So beginning with an inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. We'll do that a couple more times together. And one more. Now on your exhale, I invite you to create some sound, however loud you'd like. And with every exhale, we're going to continue doing this about 10 times. Allow that sound to get louder and louder and louder. on your own time, taking these breaths as slow as you can. And if you like, you can add some shaking or some tapping. Moving this energy through the body. A few more times. Releasing through the feet, through the tailbone. Two more times here. Last time. And we can end with a lion's breath. I invite you to include that practice throughout your days, throughout your weeks, whenever you need to release, connect with your body, connect with your voice, and wishing you all so much love as we continue this conversation. You know, take care of your needs, take breaks if we need to. And I'm going to pass it back over to Siobhan.
Sorry, I have to say, can you have a moment for Kiki and I's tattoos? Oh, I'm on mirror mode. Might have gotten matching tattoos in Hawaii with the fairy goddesses.
So good, so good.
We've missed grounding with you too. Really been thinking about. I just got a big wave of emotion, which is, I think, just an affirmation to that practice that you let us in, and that safety that I feel really, really in my body and grounded now. And I feel the emotions already surfacing of just how beautiful this community that we've been cultivating really is, how radically, like, I just, there's nothing else in the world I want to do than show up to hold space for y'all. Like, everyone in the chat, seeing who is here, who is chiming in, who is present, knowing the work that y'all do in your lives. I think I just want to start that off. If the topic is responsibility and the actions we want to take and creative solutions, I think it's been so clear coming out of Hawaii that we really, really have been called to hold space, both streaming and speaking just out between the two of us, but also really excited to get back into communal spaces where we can hear from y'all too. So just starting there, thank you for being here. Kiki shared the Queen of Cups card, and it was funny because that was the first card that I pulled on this Hawaii trip. And the first morning we were there, we've been practicing with sharing more, like getting MIDORI got us microphones and all these like tech situations to really improve our, I guess, production quality for y'all. And the Queen of Cups was the first. I didn't share it. I don't know why, but maybe it's just so I could tell this story now. Which was the Queen of Cups really, to me, what it's saying right now is this message of the importance of our intuition and discernment. And I think that's where I want to kick off this conversation around Hawaii, because it was complicated to choose to go to Hawaii at this time. I'm definitely one of those people that share those posts saying, stop fucking going to Hawaii, like during, since 2020, when natives were saying, please, like the tourism industry is literally killing people out there. Kiki's having family on Maui, who lost their home in the fires, and just being so aware of the complexities, and at the same time being really committed to this intuition, and knowing that this, and the Queen of Cups to me says, like, this is the time to really sink deeper into our trust in our own inner voice, because it is becoming louder, and the noise is becoming louder and louder around us. We have all of this escalation in Palestine. We have a presidential election here in the US this year, and I'm already seeing the ways that it is just more important than ever to really trust my own intuition and judgment, because I'm noticing a lot of ways that I am falling outside of the lines of what like the social justice collective voice has deemed good, bad, all of these things, and continuing to just break out of that binary. And so I think that for me was like the tone um, of what I was open for, because I knew the land was calling me. I knew the ocean was calling me. I knew that I was supposed to be on this trip, but I couldn't quite understand why until now that I'm really integrating that it was part of that, neutralizing this binary thinking, this kind of carceral thinking around who's good and bad and what it means, and just really owning the complexity and owning and being right in my own inner justice system and my own spiritual system, knowing that if other people question what my ethics are, that I'm really solid internally for what that means. And so that's what the Queen of Cups has said to me about this moment, about the soft power community, is that we do it different. We move differently. We saw proof of that we've seen proof of that time and time again this past year. And especially while traveling, seeing the impact that the frequency has. And so I guess I just want to take it back to the start of what brought us to Hawaii, because Kiki really is that person who has that origin story that began in Oahu specifically. And I just want to give you some space to share how this emerged and what it was like to invite not only your relationship, but also to bring others with you, and just let us in a little more on that background.
Yeah. It This trip was so much more than I even initially had set out to, experience with y'all. I will say that this was my third time being to Oahu. Specifically, the first time was when I had not been in reunion with my biological family. The second time was after I had connected with my biological father and had been in deep connection with him, and really wanting to connect more with my culture, and really start to build that relationship with Hawaii. And that was back in 2021 when I took that second trip, and really got to see Hawaii from a more local perspective and through the eyes of my dad, and see it from his point of view, who he was born and raised in Oahu, on the island of Oahu, although he's 100% Ilocano Filipinx. And so that is also very much a part of my experience of the island of Oahu and Hawaii, is that it's this Filipino immigrant story that also is so wrapped up in the Hawaiian culture, that it's sometimes difficult to understand or navigate, and be really clear about what is what, when we're in these conversations of decolonization and re-indigenizing and connecting with one's ancestry. And so the complexity has been there for me from the get. And so that first trip back to visit my dad was a lot of just being present with my family, being present with him. I literally lived with him in his apartment, his 1-bedroom apartment, for about 7 weeks, and got to see a lot of incredible things while I was there. But as a single individual person, it was really hard to, fully process and my own story at the same time I was experiencing all of these things, and hearing all of these voices in my head of, like you said, that binary thinking of what's good, what's bad, what I should be doing, what I, shouldn't be doing, what I have the right to do and experience, what I shouldn't. And that was just really challenging to experience by myself. And so after coming back, integrating what I did experience and learn in that trip, I had been reaching out to folks and having conversations about other folks' relationship with the islands, and found out that MIDORI, our nucleus team member on Soft Power, our producer for Tapped In, also has relationships and family on Oahu. And so we were talking for probably since, I think, 2021, maybe 2022, that we would love to experience Oahu together sometime, knowing that we both have those family ties and a desire to really better understand ourselves through this connection with the land, and taking ourselves back through time, through just traveling. And then we started talking at the beginning of January. Actually, it was incepted, I think, at our retreat in December when we were all together. Again, Hawaii came up, and we just kind of let it be there. We didn't put a lot of energy into it. We're just like, oh, Hawaii would be so cool for Soft Power. And Flo, the fairy goddess, painted this watercolor picture of, I think, Mauna Kea, and has Soft Power Hawaii on it 2024. And by the end of January, Midori and I was looking at airline flights and seeing that it was fairly cheap to go in April, and reached out to her and said, like, does this feel like the right time for us to do this? Do you think Soft Power should go? And just like kind of in that, like, that hit of intuition and spirit, like running through us, it was just a yes from the whole team. And that was what was so incredible about it, was like, I had obviously been wanting to get back to spend time with my family, to bond with my siblings more. But it was just like a moment where everything kind of clicked, aligned. There was yeses from everyone. And the thing about Soft Power is, like, I know nobody's going to say yes just because everyone else is. Like, everyone's checking with their own spirit guides, their own intuition, their own discernment. And the fact that it was a yes from everybody, just affirmed that, okay, there's something that's meant for all of us to go experience and learn together.
Yeah, there really was. Thinking back on that time, you going back in time a little bit to 2021, when you spent that 7 weeks. I had met you a little before that, I think in like March or something like that, like spring of 2021. We connected on Instagram, and then we were in a business container together, and you went on that trip, and I remember following along. I think, did you get married that same year too?
Yeah, it was
married when you got back.
Yeah.
So I remember watching that, and as someone who is a daughter of an adoptee, you just like that initial connection with you and seeing more of your story on Instagram. We weren't really having like personal conversations yet. I was really starting to expand my thinking of the ways that my dad's adoption impacted me, because I honestly just never really considered it that much. It kind of, and this is a whole other topic, and just so y'all know, Tapped In is going to be back regularly with Kiki and I in conversation, because we have a lot of topics to go through, and adoption is just one of them. But really following you in that, and then when you, after your wedding that fall, reached out to me to hire me as your doula, I think that's when things really started to expand. And for folks that don't know, that was kind of the foundation for Kiki and I's friendship. And wouldn't even say we transitioned into like friends until that was really like completed. It was very like boundaried, I think, relationship. And after that, I think even during the process was like, wow, like this client is really opening up new things around my understanding of like birth. They're really opening up my understanding of how I want to doula. You asked me to be your doula, and I remember saying like, oh, I've never worked with someone pre-conception. Normally people reach out to me once they're pregnant. So having that trust from you, to invest in my work, was really this kind of like energy exchange that I see really like blasted open for both of us so many things. Then it escalated to like sharing dreams and like ancestral stuff. So
breaking nails at the same time, just like
and so we just elevated. We've escalated our relationship to matching tattoos at this point. but witnessing you through that and the devotion that you had to confronting a lot of these different inheritances, as I've referred to them, from your journey as an adoptee. Um, like you said, like there's so much complexity. And so when it eventually came this invitation to go to Hawaii, I, of course, was like, yes, and also, there were so many moments of pause leading up where I was like, okay, why am I going? Why is this
Mhm.
necessary for me? Like,
Mhm.
yes, I want to be a really good friend. I really want to witness my two of my greatest friends in their reunion. And it wasn't so clear to me. And there was even this point in March where I said, I don't know if it makes sense for me to go. I might not go.
Yep.
Um, and that like bubbling kind of like not fear, but really it was around um should I be going, like if I don't have a purpose there, am I just going as vacation? Am I just being extractive? Um and I think naming that out loud to you and Midori and the team actually catalyzed something energetically for us, and that actually sparked the opportunity to receive. And so part of this trip was actually made possible by a choice of someone in the community to invest their inherited wealth into the soft power nucleus team. And I just like really
Mhm.
have chills still at that decision, that someone close to the vision saw something so, or sees something so important about what we're doing to gift us this opportunity to be together in person, to travel to these lands and start documenting these stories.
Mhm.
And so when the question came up, like, what are y'all doing there? It is kind of more complicated than I'm even able to articulate because there were so many aspects. It was like, we're here to rest, we're here to listen, we're here to witness Kiki and Midori and their family journeys. We're here to document and create and just be creative, because when we're together, that was clear in our first retreat in December, was like the moment we got together, the creativity just like overflows. We like
It
start
pops
singing,
off,
we start
y'all.
dancing, writing music. It's just this really mutually like electrifying, I think, dynamic, and that's why we call it a nucleus, that we're just five brain cells in some ways while having these really individual stories. And so
Mhm.
yeah, my and in that process I will share with folks that in the process leading up to the trip, I realized that I did have like slight, I've had experiences that could be seen as a connection to the land. One being that I've been to, prior to this, I had been twice out to the Hawaiian Islands. Once when I was an infant, to Maui, and it's actually where I took my first steps, I learned from sharing
Mhm.
with my mom. And I was
Mhm.
like, that's got to be something. And now that I'm processing, I'm like, yep, I definitely feel like there were some like first steps taken. So I walked for the first time on the Hawaiian Islands. And the other special route I have there is that that's also the same trip where my dad decided to be sober. He was, and would say still is, an addict, but he's 32 years sober now. And that happened on a family vacation where he
Mhm.
said we all went to bed, he went out, got drunk. If you've heard my other stories, you might have heard that he actually went to rehab and was not at my birth, because he had checked into rehab and that was not the successful stint. So it still took that trip to Maui for him to, as his story goes, he climbed to the top of Haleakala at sunrise, decided that that was it, and he considers that his rebirth day. That's the birthday we celebrate. I'm getting
Me
emotional, but
too.
yeah, it was just
And
such
he
a
had the
catalyst.
rebirthday while we were in Hawaii. So we
Yes, and that
all
date was while we were there. That
Mhm.
date was while we were there, and then the third date that actually coincided, I realized, was the third anniversary of my choice to have an abortion in 2021, which was actually right around when I met Kiki as well.
Mhm.
And that's another story for another time. But knowing, I'll just share that that was actually one of the biggest decisions, one of the biggest spiritual initiations of my life, was choosing that path. And
Mhm.
so, without going too much more on my story, that was all of this was like remembering, and that was my only intention of going to Hawaii, was to remember. And I remembered so much being there, including just witnessing, like you said, your family being like several generations still Filipino, but several generations in Hawaii, and having been to the Philippines, seeing your family and knowing that most of them had never gone to the Philippines, but it just feeling like the Philippines, like
Mm-hmm.
the family parties, the gathering, like it just felt. And I was just like, yeah, like this is, as Flo has said, has called it, ancient futures. I really
Mm-hmm.
felt that being there. It was like, yeah, this is what ancient futures feel like. There's was such this retention of, yeah, it just felt like home. It felt like home to me. And I don't know where I was steering with that, but I want to pass it back to you, because that's what we've been referring to this as, is homecoming for you. So what was it like returning? Yeah, what has this relationship with home been like, going there and knowing that that's where you were? Like, I don't know what you, well, how would you describe what your life started there?
Yeah, my life literally started there. So I was not born on the islands. I was conceived on the islands. And so I've had a lot of trouble navigating that, similar to how you share your concerns or apprehensions to returning to the islands for this trip, Siobhan. I, really wondered, like, do I have any, I kind of felt like the islands in my mind, right, before this. I was telling myself that the islands had severed me for a reason, had, moved me to Turtle Island for a reason, because I wasn't meant to have relationship there. And so that was the story I was telling myself for the first like uh 28 years of my life. But really on this trip, it was confirmed that through spirit, through the land, through being in ceremony with y'all, that mm, whew, that the land has just been waiting for me to return, and that the land celebrated that conception and allowed that conception to happen for a reason. And yes, I lived most of my life so far being separated from the islands. Um, but that's for another reason. It's for me to be able to see Hawaii from an outsider's perspective and still have connections and roots there, so that I can be a true voice, messenger, advocate, to the best of my ability. And that's my responsibility, to figure out how to do that in a way that is integral to who I am, but that, the land honored that, and that's why it was able to happen. And just to kind of go into, like, yeah, I was conceived there, and the connection that I have with Siobhan around um, them being my birth doula. I also feel like my daughter was brought into this storyline and this lineage through what we now call the birth realm. And while we were in Hawaii, where we were staying, we walked out to the beach, and it was literally the vision I had of the birth realm the entire time we were working together. And so to know that this land not only honored and celebrated my own conception, but honored and celebrated and literally helped me pluck this spirit out of the ocean, in the birth realm myself, that was created, recreated, and ushered in by Siobhan as well, is just the weaving of it all. I don't even know if that's all making sense to y'all right now, but just that, you know, there is a clear connection to these islands. And so what is my responsibility now? And so to return with a crew, literal crew. That's what everyone called y'all whenever my family would invite us to a party. It was like, yeah, bring your crew. And to arrive there, to be able to see it again through everyone else's eyes, and to also introduce y'all to my family, was a real shedding of armor for me, because this adoption reunion story for me, on IG can look really, really cute and really, beautiful. And it is, in the ways that I've been able to connect with my dad and my siblings and the land in Hawaii. But, it's a lot more complex than that. And I don't need to get into any of the real like details around that, but y'all got to see the real me. You got to see the realness between me and my dad, the realness between me and my siblings. And it really helped disarm a lot of what I had been, like, holding up as, like, "Uh-oh, are they gonna love me if they see this part of me? Are they gonna still want me to be a part of this soft power community if they see where I truly come from and what my day-to-day life looks like?" And so returning was really vulnerable. It was really emotional. And I think for the very first time, I cried in front of y'all, like really, really cried in ceremony with Camille. And it was just a beautiful moment to finally just kind of like set down that armor and just say, okay, I surrender. I surrender to this is my calling. These are my people, and I feel loved and cared for enough to set down any of those armors that I may have been holding up my whole life, scared that I wasn't going to be enough, and just trusting that y'all have my back and that you really see me for my whole true self. And that was just affirmed over and over again. In the ways, especially Siobhan showed up for me and my family. Siobhan doing readings. I'll let you share if there's anything more you want to share on that. But yeah, we really got to see each other in our true essence, and that was really such a gift.
Yeah, like you said, it's so easy to see the cute stuff on IG, even the stories we've posted so far, but it was a really vulnerable and courageous trip for all of us, and I think that will have to be another episode with the whole
Mhm.
nucleus team,
Totally.
because we're, there's so many things in general with like traveling with a group, like picking a place to eat, picking a place to stay. Like we're all neurodivergent as fuck. Like we got a baby, we got an elder. Like it was not always cute. Like there were days of irritability, there were days of insecurity, and um yeah, I'm that's part of why I think we're really committing to sharing more here in the YouTube space, so it can actually hold the fullness of what this journey has been like for us, because
Mhm.
it's not just, I remember, other people. We have this nucleus, five of us: Kiki, myself, Midori, Flo, and Willa. And we're not the only ones who are part of this soft power um, community. Obviously, so many of y'all are here in the chat. There are so many other collaborators. We have doulas that hold space for us. And I think that's even been like a kind of awkward thing at times in the beginning to kind of navigate. That's just like, okay, like we're not being exclusive, and there's a purpose of why the five of us are stewarding this particular stage together.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of it has to do with that relationality, those wounds of separation. And everybody's story is our own, but I think we all carry that thread of like outsiderness.
Mhm.
Um, which is what has made like that the first retreat, y'all. We were in California for 5 days, and it rained the whole time. Like cabin fever, both, and also both times we traveled together were during Mercury retrogrades. And
Mhm.
so we were just celebrating. I was like, y'all, if we can figure this out and choose to see each other fully through these conditions, like this is the work. This is the work
Mhm.
right here. Um
Mhm.
is yeah, how do we not take, like, just, well, that's why we talk about the nervous system all the time. It's just like
Mhm.
we all come from these like wounds and patterns, as well as gifts, and that
Mhm.
process alone has been really, really beautiful. um, I want to talk a little bit more about the ceremonies that you mentioned,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we did know that coming out here we wanted to really um, just come correct. And so
Mhm.
we have, in the soft power community, Camille Onaga, who is a spirit communicator. She's a member of the care immersion this past year. um, she and I went to high school together and only reconnected the last few years, and it's been really cool to see the bond that's there between you and her, between others. And so we knew that we wanted to just really step in intentionally. And so we hired her as our team doula in Hawaii, and she held two ceremonies for us. The first one being an introduction to the land, where she gave us these really thoughtful packets. And I will say that I saw in the chat, Alexis mentioned debating going to your business partner's wedding, and I would say my body says yes, and tap in with Camille. I think that's what I'm excited to share, as we're definitely going to invite her on later to talk about her framework, because what she did for us was really orient us honestly. Even before we came, she was like, I want you to just drop your expectations, even the good ones, even like anything you have about being like a humble visitor, like just scratch all of the narratives that you have and just come and be open and be curious. And she really, I think, was just blew me away in a lot of ways, of the ways that she orchestrated this commitment to the land. And then we had a second ceremony, which was a commitment to one another and the soft power vision and frequency. Um, and I think what was really special about it for me was to see that she's someone who's um, not Hawaiian by ethnicity, but is a Filipino living for 10 years on Oahu, married to someone who is multi generational on the islands as well. And that is what I felt the most. I think one of the biggest things I took away being there was softening of that rigidity and hearing it from the island itself. All of these kind of like, don't come, don't do this, or you're allowed to be here, you're not allowed to be there. And listening to the land, listening to the ocean. And one of the things that I heard was just being like I don't know how to put it, but it was kind of like this infantilizing, like laugh. I felt this playful. The way that I channeled the island was very playful. Like, it was just like, oh my gosh, you don't think we're more complex than that? Like, come on. Like, we don't care as long as you come. Like, there are natives who don't hold the same reverence. It's all up to you. The choice is yours. Everyone's welcome, and how you proceed is up to you. Do you have anything else to say about those ceremonies?
Oh, in my head, I have a lot to say, but at this very moment, I think all I want to share is just the potency in which we received messages from Camille, the land, and just that affirmation, like you said, of being there. That when you come to Hawaii, really what I heard was that then you choose to be an advocate and an ally for the land, period. And so if you choose to ever travel there, you have to figure that out yourself, of how to be in relationship with it, with the people, with the land. And that's a relationship that, you other people might say this, similar to, like, your relationship with God is your relationship with God and spirit. Similar to the land, it's up to you how you come and how you relate to all of the plants and flora around you. One thing that I always love about traveling and seeing soft power move as a group is just that playfulness again, of like talking to the tree that we were basically living in the cottage. That it was like this tree house, and there was a tree right on the porch, and just the sweetness and the playfulness that is shown to the world around us, the natural world around us. And so I think just that integrity um, was such an important part of our initiation to being um, most likely regular visitors to these islands. And I see us really, this isn't just a one and done extractive experience. It's something that we all have really shared, that we want to continue building relationships with, and going deeper in our connection with the land.
Yeah. I want to go back. I thought about this as you were talking earlier about
Mhm.
how intricate this web is. And I just even want to talk about how we ended up staying where we were staying.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of wild, y'all. We knew from the jump that we wanted to do a homestay. We knew we were not going to stay in hotels. And when I was a little bit nervous of like, okay, how are we going to make that happen? Because we were on a potentially short timeline, especially once I learned that Airbnbs are not legal in there, and they're starting up this lawnmower, whatever it is. Not lawnmower. I don't think people here have lawns. Anyways, if it's too loud, apologies. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah, I think you're good.
So how I was a little nervous once I learned that um, there's a law for very good reason that there's a short-term rental law that you can only rent to one party a month. And so it got to be March, and I was like, how are we going to find a place for next month? And so, by whatever guidance of spirit, me late at night am guided to just, and I don't even see it that way. I was like, I just go on Craigslist. I go on Craigslist, and there is this ad, and everybody keeps asking, how did you find this place? How did you find this place? I'm like, intuition, y'all, because it was easily one of those descriptions that could have been a scam or just a boomer. That's what I told myself. Like, it's either a scam or a boomer. And it turns out it was just a boomer because this house was available. First of all, pricing was fair for what it was, and our neighbors were the Obamas. And so we knew the area. Like, Kiki was like, this is where we're staying, this is where my sister lives. And given even interesting that like that's where we were staying, given that most of your family was in a totally different part of the island. Almost every day we were driving across. Everywhere uncle wanted to go eat was on the other part of the island. And so that we were looking in that area, found this random little Craigslist listing, no contract, no anything, like just it all worked out. And we are like, all right, like how is this going to go down? And we get there and we're just like, oh my gosh, like we're literally right on the beach. You walk out, it's pretty private. You can see Rabbit Island, which just contributed to the birth realm energy. Kiki saying this is the birth realm, seeing this turtle pond, and literally this concrete wall that is the Obama household. Secret Service were there. They apparently left the day before we got there, but I think towards the end another party was coming through because there were Secret Service around. But it was just kind of nuts, even that fact. But I think, again, everything was very intentionally woven because the opportunity, like the calmest part to float and just swim was right in front of their home. So that's where we were pretty much the whole time on the beach, was right in front of their house. And there were these days I was just floating, staring at their estate. And like, so there's just like this big concrete wall. You see kind of the tops of their estate and the trees, and then this like big mountain. Every single sound is happening right now. It's hilarious. So,
The police state is real clear right now.
hilarious. Yeah, the sound effects feel appropriate. Yeah, so it was wild, and again, it contributed to this message of neutrality and to hold the neutrality, because one of the first days I was floating there just kind of like staring, just floating and staring. It was a lot of floating with my ears in the water, listening and just looking. And the message was like, looking at the Obama house was like, they're not sinister, they're just dead inside. Like, there's nothing evil here. It is just soulless. It is just not alive. It is the trees have not been sung to. Like, there is just no spirit here. It is dead inside. And then the other message too was like, and you don't think they have ancestors? You don't think they have forces guiding them? Because we're like, this is just wild. Like, everything we're doing, laying here looking at this. And that was something that really, as someone who's come from a lot more like harsher, being an abolitionist, that's what to me what soft power is like softening my abolition, that it's not us versus them. It's I'm here to continue to pray for the people who need to remember they're alive, who need to remember why they're here. And so, yeah, I just want to share the part about the home because it was just trippy. It was really, really trippy. And there would be these moments of awareness where I would come back to awareness and being like, oh my God, this is where we're at. Like, this is where we were called to. Sweeping the porch and hearing the tree be like, no one's ever done this before. No guests have ever cared for this house like this. And the next day, the whole porch being covered in bird shit because the birds were so happy for like the offerings that we were just pouring liquor on the tree and like singing to them and talking to them. And you could just feel the place like come alive. And that is the soft power frequency I think that we move in. It's just being alive, remembering that we are spiritual, and that's the baseline. And we're not here to, that was the other main message, was like, you're not here to like do this all the time. Even before, it was a few days before the trip ended, I heard the ocean say like, you're complete. And I didn't get back in the water. And I was like a little bit rebellious on it. I was like, can I? And just feeling that like no, and being like, okay, when the ocean says no, like I'm not gonna mess with that. And just knowing that like that was what that was for. It's like we're here to remember our innate spirituality, our innate soul like essence, and then get back to earth, literally get back to earth. So how has it been getting back to earth for you?
Whew. Getting back to earth, for me, I am on occupied, settled Peoria, Kickapoo land in central Illinois. I've been here since 2021. I moved here right before I had that first trip to visit my dad. And what I will say is very different is that since my dad has now moved here to central Illinois with me, it was a very different experience coming back here. Still very disorienting in a lot of ways, just because, yeah, it's culture shock. Going from a place where the culture is very warm and welcoming and communicative and alive, the energy is so present when you're walking down the street. Partially that's because my dad knows everybody, it seems like, and will talk to anyone as if they're his best friend. But truly, like the Zippies we went to right after we landed in Hawaii, we walk in and my dad starts up a conversation with the cashier. Like they literally knew each other. And he was like, hey, where have you been? Like, I haven't had your order in however many years. So, like to literally go into a place where I walk around and I don't have anyone responding to me.
My
Yeah,
favorite
exactly.
was your dad walking through. We go to this one plaza for lunch, and he's just walking down the strip mall, swinging open every door, looking who's inside. He's just like, "Hey, who's here? Close the door. Keep on moving." Like, and the
Like, I
most
don't know anyone
hilarious
here.
part is
Okay.
that he afterwards, I think he learned to tell us after, like, "Oh yeah, I know him," and even he'd be like, "Oh, I don't know them," and
Yeah.
every person, the interaction was the same. But after, be like, "Yeah, I never met them before," or be like, "Oh yeah, we." Like they served me for 20 years at this one job. So just hilarious.
So funny. But that is also something that I see and observe in my dad when we're here and returning is that like shock of, oh my gosh, people don't do that here. Um, and just that sadness, the grief of like going to a place where yes, it feels like home in a lot of ways. And I'm grateful to be back in my bed and to be in the sanctuary that I've created here for myself. But really, really, yeah, just like feeling that come down of that's not my life. And so what do I do here? How can I bring that energy, that love, the aloha with me wherever I go? Because it can't just stay in a vacuum in Hawaii. I think the point is that I learn from that. I embrace that. I integrate that into my life and how I move. And I share that as a ripple effect in my life in the way that I interact with the people around me. And so that can be a really challenging thing when I just don't have that so readily available in my community, but also knowing that that is my responsibility as someone who does not live there and, doesn't, yeah. I have other things that I need to do with that learning and that, um, I guess the best word is Kuleana, which we learned from Camille. I had learned about this word before, but just, again, integrating more with soft power, it really hit differently this time, to feel like I could really use that word to describe what really my decolonization journey is all about. It's my kuleana, my responsibility. What do I do here in this lifetime? And actually, now that this feels kind of like the right time to share, the other card that I pulled is Soul's Journey. And it says, living from soul opens me to the magic that exists when I surrender to divine manifestation on its own terms and timing. And so just really accepting that this is my soul's journey. And I've been called to connect with the islands, and yet I am not a resident of. And so what do I do with that when I return home? Even when I just want to like curl up and stay in my own little bubble because it hurts to kind of go outside right now. Once I, build myself back up and really get get rid of my jet lag, my kuleana is to share that love, share that aloha that we received for those 2 weeks that we were there.
I see you, sis. Yeah, the complexities. I actually love that we get all the sounds of the world out here.
I just have to say, Siobhan almost moved inside, and I think this is exactly why Spirit said no. Intuition said no. Because this is our constant reminder. Like, this is the world we live in.
We are here. Yep, we are here. And we say that all the time, that like we are so infinite. We are remembering and imagining all the other lives that we've possibly and probably had together. Being mermaids, being trees, being, you know, islanders elsewhere. Um, but we came here. We came here and we're remembering why and bringing those things that we're recovering, and reclaiming back with us into these lives that we were given. And is this the part where I cry? Because I do have that memory of us like being in the van driving and like looking at you and you being like, yeah, like this could have been my life. And just knowing that, knowing that you're like taking that responsibility. And I talked a lot, I thought a lot about that, particularly on the day of the Scorpio full moon. We had this really beautiful day where Uncle drove us around the North Shore, ending at Kaina Point, which we'll have to again do that justice with another conversation. But it was this just really, really special, highly spiritually driven moment. Willa was specifically called to go to that location. And so, as we were there releasing this crown that Camille had given us, a rainbow came. There's a huge spider coming. That's a sign too. Oh my gosh, funny. I never. Wow, it's like, like wrapping up the whatever it's caught. I don't really see that often. But yeah, we're part of this whole. We're just, yeah, we cannot separate from the world around us. We feel it when you know, when everything has started escalating in Palestine. Like, I was literally feeling it in my womb, feeling that violence and knowing that so many people are struggling with mental health right now because we have been so severed from our connection and our acknowledgement of the connection to one another and the land. This responsibility to accept the conditions that we entered in on without, and there's like, that fine line of not like gaslighting ourselves with the like very oversimplified, everything happens for a reason, and we're ascending and all of that. It's like, well, at some point, that's what I'm growing in. My kuleana is like growing in this responsibility for the conditions I'm here in, the literal body I'm in, the skin tone I have, and seeing like, okay, what is this like formula that I entered into this world with, and what do I do with that now? Because like I said, feeling so at home there was also immediately checked with like, this isn't your home. You have so much privilege. You have so much, um, you know, both have both received and enacted violence in your lineage. And I think that just really, I don't know, that's something that I don't think it's a coincidence that all the soft power nucleus team are Asian Americans. I think there is something around that positioning we have in this country and in the U.S. of being not native and still being so close and having being so close to those memories of what it means to live indigenously. Um, yeah, I just really see you in the ways that you are embracing and working with what you have. And for me, stepping out, my responsibility has similarly been that, like, own every part of me and participate back in my community. I was reflecting a lot on my astrology, and I think that it's just such a, code to. I love. I don't know the origin of this. I haven't studied astrology much, but the idea that that is like a look at the contract you signed when your soul came to this life really resonates for me. And coming back and being like, okay, I have this third house community neighborhood vibes. Like, this is my neighborhood. This is my home. Um, it's not a coincidence. Even if my dad was adopted, I still consider myself a sixth generation San Franciscan, because there's a responsibility that comes with that, where that used to be such a flex, and that can be such a flex for people from here to be multi-generation. And it also implies a long-standing settler relationship that I have the responsibility to um, take accountability for and make right with my energy and my presence. And so I'll leave it at that, that my responsibility and the gift I've been given, like I said, this gift of being able not only to focus on soft power full time, but to us, that full time has included, like, there's space in these agreements for rest, and there is space and emphasis on our spiritual care, knowing that we get to, yeah, we just get to have the space to think about these things, to share these things. That brings me back of like, my Kuleana is to use my voice. That's what the land told me in Hawaii. It was like, use your voice and tell people, and just show up and speak. And so I will let that be my closing remark on it, is that my commitment and my responsibility is to show up here with you and to continue and now let others in on our conversations. That we're having, because I trust now that it actually matters. I trust that it's not like I don't know. That's one thing I've like kind of hesitated for. It's like, who cares what I have to say? I don't want it to be like, oh, look at me. We went on a paid trip to Hawaii, and it's like so much more than that. And trusting, back to the Queen of Cups, trusting that those who may have, if it is triggering, really uncomfortable things in you, and you find yourself being like, shut the hell up, you privilege, whatever, that's okay. I'm okay with that. I know that I instigate change whether I try to or not. That's the journey of our lives. I think we both share that. It's like, whether we want to or not, we're going to trigger something in people by being our full selves. And that's the Kuleana right there.
Wow. I love that. I love that so much, because it, just really living my life for a long time trying to conform to what I thought people expected of me and the roles that I, thought I had agreed to early on in my life. And now in a stage of life, really, since, reconnecting with my biological family, that's shifted a lot in the ways that I've shown up, in the ways that I want to continue to um, be using my voice, to be using uh, this body as a vessel for change and liberation. And like you said, we're gonna trigger change whether we mean to or not. I think that's just part of our journeys, and how our relationship remains strong, because I know I have that support system and that care and that nurturing that will also check me, will love me, and also check me if that ego gets out of line, or, you know, I start going off the deep end, in all of the most supportive, loving ways. I that was what our commitment ceremony with Camille also showed me, was that, yeah, our souls met in the astral, and have now our bodies have found each other in the physical. And I'm so grateful that we get to share these types of experiences together, and to get to eat the poke, and to get to go get pho as many times as we want to, and to have grilled oysters, and to just like revel in what it means to really be human. I don't know what just dropped, but that was also, the abundance is just falling around us. But we are so grateful. And, you know, every moment of that trip really was a gift. And just continuing to share the story with you, with the rest of the Nucleus team. I'm so excited to share more with our community, because there's lots more that we didn't mention. I feel like we just got the kind of general bone structure of what our trip was. And I'm excited to go deeper with all that we experienced and learned, and what our takeaways are.
Yeah, so we will be back here weekly is the plan, streaming, sharing more. We are also working behind the scenes to develop more of an organized structure to welcome all of our peer facilitators and creators who are out there and really craving that. So, whatever, thank you for being here. To everyone who's joined, whatever it is that you're still wondering, feel free to ask us, and you can kind of like co-create where these conversations steer. But at the end of the day, this right here, being able to just express and be received, is like, if that's all I ever received from this, it feels like life-changing. It has been really life-changing. Our friendship has been really life-changing. And like you said, having a group of people that we can trust will call us in and keep us on track, because it's hard, and things like spiritual psychosis are real. And we are going to be getting into like current events, because there's a lot to say of what's been going on since we've been quiet the last few months. We have so many things, from the birth world to the spiritual world, academia. There's so many. These wounds touch everything in our world, and we're here to just name it and look at it and erase the power of fear that it might hold over us, and alchemize it all into creating change in whatever that means. And so if you're watching, stick around. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, do that now. Get on our email list, because we will have events and spaces reopening soon. Thank you everyone for just trusting our timing. That has been, I'm really in a practice of slowing down on it, because I really burnt out from, like, you know, the awareness of everything that needs to occur for this change to happen. And I think Hawaii really helped me orient myself that we got a whole lifetime, and after this lifetime ends, I'll probably be back for another round, because that's just the type of bitch I am. I'll probably keep signing up to come back here, and you know, it's a little masochistic in that. That's
Put me to work.
yeah, so subscribe to our Substack. That's the best way to keep in touch with everything we've got going on. If you feel called to become a paid subscriber, that will help sustain the vision as well. And other than that, we'll see you back here next week. Thank you, Kiki. Thank you, Midori, Flo, the whole Soft Power team and universe. And we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.
Those for the ancestors.